Since ancient times, people have been obsessed with the moon. Some even talk about times before it arrived in the sky. Today, I want to share with you some interesting mysteries and anomalies surrounding it, so that you can see that our natural satellite is not so ordinary. Does it hide secrets that can transform our understanding? Let's find out together. The unknown origin of the moon. We start with a seemingly ordinary fact, which is, however, quite shocking. Science still does not have a definitive answer about the origin of the moon, only theories. The most common is that a planet the size of Mars hit the early Earth and debris entered orbit, and over millions of years they gathered through gravity and formed the moon. The approximate composition of the Earth's and Moon's rocks is cited as evidence. Very important. The word approximate, not identical. Therefore, another hypothesis claims that the Earth and the Moon formed independently in different parts of the solar system or space, and during a closer passage, our planet captured it with its gravity. Another theory says that the Moon was formed due to the Earth's once faster rotation. This is how mass was torn off and our satellite was formed. However, there are several problems with the moon, anomalies, and very strange coincidences, which together do not allow one theory of origin to prevail. First, it is too large and too close for the size of our planet, and if it was formed from debris, there would still be some traces of them in orbit. With these impressive dimensions, the moon would hardly be gravitationally captured. After all, it is the fifth largest satellite in the solar system, and all the other before it are around the giants Jupiter and Saturn, which are huge compared to our planet. Another interesting thing is that the moon makes one revolution around the Earth in 27.5 days, but its face always rotates around us. That is, we only see one side of it. It is locked in this position towards us. Separately, it is 400 times smaller than the Sun, but it is located exactly 400 times closer to the Earth. It is these strange coincidences and games of nature that give rise to alternative theories about our natural satellite. Let's look at them. The dark side of the moon. From Earth, we see only one side of the moon. This is known to everyone and has a logical explanation for its special rotation. I should mention that science does not accept that the moon rotates on its axis, but rather that it rotates together with the Earth. Officially, this is called synchronous rotation, but there is a slight discrepancy due to its uneven movement in orbit. We can also observe parts of its reverse side, so we see not 50%, but 60% of the moon, with 40% really remaining hidden. Conspiracy theories say that it is on the other side of our satellite that such hidden things happen, and this is reinforced by the fact that we have too few photos or video materials from the far side. Here is a picture of the far side, which is most commonly known as the dark side. The Apollo 8 crew were the first people to see it with their own eyes back in 1968. This lack of footage gives rise to ideas that there are. For example, secret bases there, remains of ancient civilizations, and whatnot. In June of this year, the Chinese successfully landed on the far side of the moon. They collected about 4 kilograms of material that they will study. Results, if shared with the public, will come out this year. The Riddle 400. On average, the distance between the moon and the Earth is 384,000 kilometers, and it is about 3.7 times smaller than the Earth in diameter. More interesting, however, is definitely the fact that it is about 400 times smaller than the Sun, but it is 400 times closer to us. This fact allows the perfect overlap during solar eclipses. One alternative theory about the origin of the moon is that it was brought into our orbit or was artificially built there in this way, since the chance of these coincidences is simply negligible. Another interesting fact is that the moon is moving away from the Earth by 3.8 centimeters per year. It may seem like a little, but after a few thousand years, we will not be able to observe total solar eclipses. Is the moon hollow? Have you noticed that the craters on the moon are more or less the same depth, no matter how wide they are? They're like shallow dinner plates. Shouldn't the bigger ones be deeper? Especially since there's no atmosphere there to blow the dust and sand around and fill them. It's as if there's some kind of metal shell that's covered in rocks and sand. This gives rise to one of the most popular and exciting theories, that the entire moon is actually hollow and houses a large-scale base. The most interesting thing is that this theory is also partly confirmed by the Apollo 12 team. After returning to the command module, the astronauts released the lunar rover, which collided with the surface of the moon. Then, the seismic instruments on the surface showed something extremely unusual. The moon rang like a bell, as if it were hollow, and this resonance lasted for about an hour. This same experiment was repeated, but with a larger module, and then the moon rang again for a longer time. 2 Soviet astronauts proposed something unheard of, even downright crazy. They say that the moon is not only hollow, but also a spacecraft placed in Earth's orbit. I know, it sounds ridiculous, but this theory has an awful lot of supporters. Tunnels on the moon. NASA recently announced that they had detected tunnels on the moon that could have been used to build underground bases. They lead deep beneath the surface of our satellite, supposedly formed by flowing lava in times when there was still volcanic activity on the moon. They were discovered after studying photos of the moon, which clearly show holes and sinkholes. The in-depth study showed that they are entrances to natural tunnels, and the light and shadow clearly show it. They are located around the equator and are at least 200. But there is more. In the North Pole area, NASA suggests that in the deeper parts of the tunnels, there may be a lot of water hidden in the form of ice, which would be of great use for future missions. The discovery was also confirmed by Japanese scientists, who added that on the moon, in addition to these tunnels, there are also huge cavities under the surface, as well as natural caves. Some of them may be about 1 kilometer long. However, whether they are suitable for life is still unknown. Have we always had a moon? Many ancient cultures speak of the moon. The further back in time we travel, the stranger the information about it becomes. If we go back to the dawn of civilization, to the Sumerians, we will find texts that tell of times before the moon arrived. The ancient Greeks and Romans speak of a strange group of people who claim to have lived in Arcadia before there was a moon in the heavens. They called themselves before the moon from the other side of the world arrived. The ancient cultures of Bolivia and Peru also mention that the moon arrived about 13,000 years ago. In Africa, there are Zulu tribes who share legends that the moon came in the past, and notice that it is hollow. Where would African tribes talk about a hollow moon? Many strange coincidences from different parts of the world, don't you think? It's interesting how the stories of groups of people who have no contact with each other and are even thousands of kilometers apart overlap. Does the moon affect the Earth? We all know that our natural satellite is the main cause of the tides of the oceans, thanks to its gravitational forces, which, in short, pull the water towards it. However, could the moon have a much greater influence than we assume, even on our climate? There are reports of some tribes who believe that the climate of the Earth before the moon was much different than it is today. The atmosphere was covered in thick fog and steam, and there were no seasons, and the sun was barely visible. Science today shows that the moon does indeed stabilize the Earth's climate. Without it, the axis of rotation would be unstable, which means unpredictable seasons and very extreme weather. This would significantly complicate life, and even its appearance due to the gravity of the moon. Now, our axis is tilted 23.5 degrees, but if our satellite disappeared, the Earth's axis would play and move in a range between 10 and 45 degrees, which would turn our planet into a dead ice world. Tribal legends also tell that when the moon was placed in Earth's orbit, all this steam fell as rain, and thus a great flood occurred. Are you familiar with this story? Yes, it's about the biblical flood. Stories about it are present in almost all cultures on the planet, and are quite similar. Is it a coincidence again? Is there water on the moon? The obvious answer to this question is no, especially since during the day, which, by the way, lasts 2 weeks on our satellite, the surface temperature reaches about 120 degrees Celsius. However, a new study indicates that there is a lot of water up there. It was hiding in microscopic beads in the lunar soil, which scientists from China recently discovered. First, it is estimated that the water stored in this way is approximately 298 billion tons. On March 17, 1981, something strange happened. A cloud of steam appeared on the moon, which covered 150 square kilometers and stood for 14 hours before disappearing. The situation was documented by the Apollo 14 program. Interestingly, similar anomalies were observed in the Plato crater, and traces of stones that mysteriously move are also present in many places, including those with a hill. The moon was hit in the 12th century, on June 18, 1178. About an hour after sunset, 5 monks from southern England observed a strange phenomenon. Here is what one of them wrote. From the middle of the moon horn suddenly sprang a blazing torch, spraying fire, hot coals, and sparks in all directions for a great distance. The moon writhed as if in pain and twitched like a wounded snake. Their story sank into oblivion until a modern scientist came across the manuscript. He reviewed photos of the back of our satellite and discovered that there was no dust around the Giordano Bruno crater, and therefore it was the result of a meteorite that fell 8 or 9 centuries ago. In fact, many other anomalies have been observed on the moon since ancient times, the most interesting of which are the lights. Even NASA says that by 1967, 570 flashes of light had been observed on the moon, which no one can definitively explain. Strange structures on the moon. Recently, the Chinese spacecraft discovered translucent glass spheres on the far side of the moon, which in science are called globules. They are balls with a diameter of between 1.5 and 2.5 centimeters and were formed from meteorites that fell recently from a cosmic point of view. However, there are some interesting photos from the earlier missions to the moon, such as this one, showing attempts to hide large parts of the moon, which are supposed to be visible structures even after the first moon landing. A third of the Apollo 11 crew shares that there is something on the moon. Look at the press conference after the landing. Do these men seem happy to you that they have done something great? That they have changed history? Or are they rather oppressed not to share? Listen for a bit. Did you notice how he looks down? It's like he wants to say something more, but he can't. Here is a quote from Robin Brad, who works for NASA. It's much easier to explain the non-existence of the moon than its existence. Astronaut reveals UFO secrets. Despite NASA's official position that there is nothing supernatural on the moon, astronaut Edgar Mitchell of the Apollo 14 mission, who is the 6th person to set foot on our satellite, claims the opposite. According to him, not only are there aliens there, but they also prevented a nuclear war between the United States and the Soviet Union to protect humanity from self-destruction. According to Mitchell, alien ships deactivated nuclear missiles and shoot them down over the Pacific Ocean. He began to leak this information 2 years after his moon landing, which of course cost him his position at NASA. Edgar Mitchell died in 2016 at the age of 85, and until the end of his life, he claimed that aliens exist and that they watch over the Earth and protect people from self-destruction. Give a thumbs up if you liked the video and subscribe to the channel for more. See you next time!